शन्न इंद्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयम् यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः। In the last few days of last session, we have studied a few verses of the 18th chapter, Tattvamasi Paranam. Just to recapitulate what we did, the first verse says, Yenatmana viriyante udbhavanti ca vrittayah नित्यावगतये तस्मै नमो धी प्रत्ययात्मने। देवता नमस्कार व्याजेन, the pretext of devata namaskaram or saluting the devata, the ishta devata. Antahkriti vritti bhav abhav sakshinam Vedantaha brahmeti pratipadayantaha. That the Vedantas expound as Brahman the one that is the sakshi or the witness of bhava and abhava, one who is the witness of the presence of the vrittis, the thoughts, and absence in deep sleep, presence in waking and dream. So one is the witness of all these vrittis, the thoughts. That witness himself is what? Kutastha chidekatanam. Chidekatanam, which is pure homogeneous consciousness. Kutastham, changeless, the changeless homogeneous consciousness who is the witness of all the thoughts and absence of thoughts. That is the one that is expounded by Vedanta as Brahman. Vedanta expounds Brahman as the very self. And who is the self? The one that is the witness of all the thoughts. Itself is kutastha, changeless consciousness. That self alone is expounded as Brahman by the Vedantas. And that kutastha Atma is always experienced as myself because it is self-revealing. So we already have aparoksha jnanam, immediate knowledge of our own self. And Vedantas reveal that that self is Brahman or Brahman is itself. That means Brahman also is taught by Vedanta as an immediate principle, aparokshadaya. That Vedantas impart the knowledge that Brahman as the very self is not something different from oneself. Yena atmana viliyante udbhavanti che vrittayah. Yena atmana means yena vyaptya, yena vyaptatmana. Yenatmana means that viliyante, when the vrittis they merge in the deep sleep state. Udbhavanti, when they emerge in the waking state. Yenatmana, yah atma yesham. This chidatma, the very atma, the very essence, the very nature of the vrittis. Meaning that when the vrittis arise, then also they are never apart from Chaitanya. The merge also never apart from Chaitanya because Chaitanya is the very Atma. Just as the ornaments, even when they are made, they are of the nature of gold. And then when dissolved also, then also they are nature of gold. So the ornaments emerge with gold as their Atma. And they merge with gold as their Atma, so also the vrittis emerge with consciousness as the Atma and merge with consciousness as Atma. Nitya avagataye tasmai. That nityam avagati means knowledge. Nityam avagataye. Nityaschasu avagatascha. That which is eternal, nitya and avagata of nature of knowledge. The pratyatmane. And the one that is the Atma of all the pratyas or the vrittis of the mind. Tasmai namaha. To that changeless consciousness, the very self, namaha, my salutation. So Atma is Ishta Devata here, and to Atma the salutations are offered. And Atma is revealed as a witness all the thoughts. The thoughts are never apart from Atma when they are born, when they emerge or they merge. And that Atma, the Nitya Avagati Swarupa, the nature of one, that is Nitya, eternal, and Avagati of nature of knowledge. To that Atma, my salutations. Idanim Swokterse Mokshunam Vishwasatham. That this is the nature of Atma which I know, which is what I understand Vedantas revealed, and that is what I know. But that is all knowledge. Is it validated by someone? He says, yes, my Paramacharya is validated by Gaudapadacharya, who is the Acharya, Paramacharya, Guru of the Guru. So second verse is Namo Yatindraya Guror Gariyase. Yatinam Indraha, one that is the most exalted among all the yatis, of the sannyasis, of the yogis, that most exalted yogi, most exalted renunciate. So Gare Guroho Gariyase, Guroho Gurave, the Guru of my Guru, that is, don't utter the name, that is to, so Namaha, Yatindraya Namaha. And what did that Guru of the Guru do? So Raraksha Vedartha Nidhim Vishanda. So, the Raksha Vedasa Nidhim. One that protected the Nidhi or the treasure of Vedasa, which is the Brahman non-dual Ekameva Advityam. So Vedasa, the theme that the Vedas are teaching is the identity of Jiva. And what is identity of what is that there is only one non-dual principle, self, consciousness, that is the self of the Jiva, Jagatishvara. This is the Vedas Nidhi, the Raksha. And this he protected because there were many Shrute Aratin. There were many enemies of Shruti, many enemies of this non-duality. So there were Sankhya, Visheshika, Nyaya, Mimamsakas, Buddhas. All these people accept duality or don't accept reality. Buddhas don't accept reality, rest of them accept duality as reality. So as long as their views prevail, as long as they exercise any influence upon people, so long this theme or this truth that Brahman is one non-dual, that alone is reality, that reality cannot be firmly established in the mind of the mumukshus as long as other contrary views also prevail. So it is necessary to show the fallacy of the thinking involved in these conclusions. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, all of these have arrived at their conclusions mainly by yukti, by reasoning, because all of them take the world to be real, Atmas to be many or limited. Then they provided the yuktis to establish that and to somehow condemn what Vedanta is teaching, the non-duality, because to justify their conclusion of duality, they have to renounce non-duality and establish that it is wrong. So many arguments were there in the Alata Shanti Prakranam. Alatam is a torch, when the torch in the dark room and the torch is moved in different shapes and you see different shapes. How one torch alone manifests so many names and forms. So also one Brahman alone manifests all these names and forms. Even though Alata, that in the dark room looks like there are many forms, what it is just one tip of the glowing tip of the firebrand. So also what shines as all these various names and forms is one non-dual consciousness, Brahman. And to establish this, the teacher has to demonstrate how all other thinking is wrong, how their conclusions are based on fallacious thinking, reasoning. So to show the fallacy of the reasoning involved in the conclusions of all these other. That's what Gaudapadacharya did. And he provided yuktis or reasoning which is something irrefutable reasoning he provided. They also provided reasoning. He also provided reasoning. And tarka pratishtha, there cannot be finality about tarka or the reasoning. All you need is one, more intelligent person to provide a better reasoning to to show the fallacy of the previous one or limitation of the previous one. But here this teacher provided a reasoning which could not be refuted, irrefutable yuktis or the arguments. And that's how he protected this treasure of Vedanta. To that Yachendra, the guru of my guru, my salutation. Evam namaskara vyajena prakranartham swasamprada shraddhincha uktva. In the first verse, the Ishtadevata, Paramatma was saluted. In the second verse, the Guru was saluted. So, Namaskara Vyajena, in the pretext of Namaskara salutation, Prakranartham, that what is being conveyed by this Prakaranam, which is Tattvamasi, the non-duality, is what is number one cited. Swasampradaya Shuddhim cha, that my Sampradaya Shuddha coming down from these great gurus, no ordinary gurus. This was necessary. This is necessary in order to set the minds of the disciples at rest. So those who are listening, their mind also must have the conviction, the Shraddha, that what the teacher is teaching is what is right. Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya Satya Buddhyavadharana. So while listening to teacher, there must be this conviction in the mind that this is what it is. To establish a Shraddha in the minds of the disciples, this was stated, that this is what the Vedas teach and this is what the teaching is coming from. And this Prakarana Siddhantam, Tattvamasyadi Vakyadeva Aparoksha Jnanamiti, that Aparoksha Jnana, immediate knowledge of the self or the reality, takes place as a result of the teaching of Mahavakya Tattvamasi. All you need for the knowledge to take place is the teaching on the part of the competent teacher that you are Brahman. And that's all you need. Because there are people who claim to be the non-dualists, but still they have some views of their own which somewhat different, not in Tattvamasi, but how do you get the knowledge? That for knowledge you need something more than thus the Upadesha. Whereas here the teacher wants to establish, the Upadesha alone is enough for the knowledge to take place. Tattvamasyadi Vakyat eva aparoksha jnanam. Aparoksha jnanam, immediate knowledge, takes place only just by the Tattvamasi Vakya. Only by the Upadesha of Tattvamasi and just by the Upadesha, you don't need anything more than that. That's what you need and that alone is what you need. Iti Prakarana Siddhantam. The Siddhanta of this 18th chapter called Tattvamasi Prakarana. The third verse is Nityamuktaha Stadevasmi iti evam chenna bhaven matihi kimartham shravatyevam matravachrutirādhrata. If this was not the theme of the Vedas, Aham Brahmasmi Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma Ekameva Dvitiyam. If this was not the theme, if this was in the heart of the Vedas, then Kimartham Shravayati Evam Matra Shruti Advita. Why Shruti with great commitment should reveal Tattvamasi 9 times, referring to Chandogya Upanishad, where the Mahavakya is stated 9 times by the teacher, Uddalaka to Shvetaketu. Why should that be done? If Tattvamasi, that thou art, was not the theme which is the heart of the Shruti, Matravat Shruti Adruta Kimartham Evam Shravayati. Abhyasa. Like mother who keeps on telling the child what is so pathyam, what is desirable or what is, that should be stated again and again. Similarly also, Shruti states again and again Tattvamasi. And that's what how a mother does, because it's not that Shruti is wasting our time by saying the same thing. It's a mother that is telling the child for the well-being of the child. Because she knows that the child needs this to be properly impressed in the mind. That samskara must be there, and therefore this must be impressed in the mind. This must become the conviction of my child. Because that is what it needs, and that's all it needs. So in order that this conviction should arise in the mind of the students or the mumukshus, Shruti, like a mother, keeps repeating this 9 times. Why should she do that? And the Shruti's mother that also is established. Vedas are the mother of all the children, because the Vedas provide the means of the well-being of all the whole range of people to fulfill their desires. If Shruti only catered to the needs of one child and ignored other children, then you would wonder whether she can be compared to the mother or not. But mother would cater to them. I want potato, I want okra, I want another. Everything is done, Okra also is there, and potato also is there, and dal also is there, and this is also there. And it might, if in this thing comes, somebody else gets somebody else, something else. Only mother would do that. This is what Shruti does. Shruti is like mother. The only thing that is the heart of the mother is the well-being of the child. And so with adara, with commitment, with enthusiasm, with devotion, the Shruti says this. Not once but 9 times. Which she could not have been doing unless this is what was in her heart. Nityamukta Sadeva Ahamasmiti Sadeva Swami Idamagrasi. That's why Sat is referred to again and again, because of the Chandogya Upanishad. Says Tattvamasi Sadevasi. That you are, that Sat which is Jagat Karanam, that's what you are. And the student responds, Sadeva Hamasmiti. If this knowledge could not take place, suppose this was not so, if indeed you are not Sat, and anybody says you are Sat and you are Sat 9 times, 900 times also. But we cannot change the nature of reality. If Atma is not Sat, then Shruti says a number of times it doesn't become Sat, because this is Jnapakam, not Karakam. The Vakya enables you to know things, doesn't create anything, doesn't change you because it says you are Sat, so it doesn't not that you become Sat. It says you are Sat because you are Sat, but you think that you are not. That is why it is necessary to say that. So this itself shows what is the tatparya of the Shruti, what's the purport of the Shruti. Is in Tattvamasi. So now we have to establish what is it that Shruti is teaching. Vedas are vast literature, vast scripture. In here we find this being done, repeated, therefore Sadevasi, that Nitya Mukta Sadevasi, and so Nitya Mukta Sadeva Ahamasmi. I am Sat, ever free, limitless, that's what I am. that mati or that conviction, if it would not arise in the mind of the student, and that would not arise if I was not Sat. If Nitya Mukta Sat I was not, then the Shruti can say any number of times, even then the conviction would not arise. But that the conviction arises for which the Shruti says this number of times, therefore this is the theme, this is the Tatparya of the Upanishads. Then Vakyadeva Paroksha Jnanam. This is of course the Tatparya, the purpose of the Shruti. So it may be, how does that knowledge take place? So we arrive at the Tatparya, the purport of the Shruti, and that is that I am Sat, Nitya Mukta, Sadeva Ahamasmi. How does that knowledge take place? Vakyadeva. All you need for this knowledge to take place is simply this Vakya Tattvamasi. And the knowledge or conviction to take place in a prepared mind. Any knowledge from a Vakya or a statement will take place only when the listener's mind is prepared. Even in our day-to-day communication also, we can understand somebody provided we have the right orientation. Otherwise, what are you talking about? So sometimes we will talk of something which is out of context and we don't understand. For us to understand, the whole context must be established, then the Vakya must be said. So Shruti establishes the context and then says, and that is so that the mind of the listener is prepared to understand the meaning of that statement. It is true that the conviction may not take place if that mind is not prepared. But any knowledge arising from Upadesha presupposes a prepared mind. Even this communication also presupposes a prepared mind. Not only with reference to English language, with reference to Vedanta and all that preparation has to be there for even this communication to successfully take place. So next point is, all that is needed is only Vakyopadesha and nothing more. Aparoksha Jnanam takes place by the Vakya only. Why? Nitya Aparoksha Swahat Atma Swarupatvad Brahmanam, because Brahman is the nature of Atma who is always an immediate reality. There is one thing that is an immediate reality, and that is myself. Because the self is self-evident or self-effulgent, self-revealing. Meaning that no effort is needed to reveal the self. No, that will not apply to anything other than self. Anything other than the self, like a pot, will require an effort to reveal because it cannot reveal itself, so it has to be illumined. So that is the difference between the knowledge of non-self and the self. Non-self is not self-revealing, therefore requires the light of consciousness to illumine. Self is very consciousness, self-revealing, therefore does not require any other light to illumine, meaning that what the Shruti is teaching is what you are already experiencing. And Shruti simply explains or reveals what it is that you are experiencing, recognize what you are experiencing. Because there is a mix-up therefore. You are experiencing Atma as well as Anatma. Atma is a subject, Anatma is the object, that means they are in different locations. But since we do not recognize that they are in different locations, subject, object, contrary locations, they cannot coexist actually. Here, Anatma cannot coexist where Atma is. And still, we somehow mix them up. So since we have the knowledge of Atma, and Aparoksha Jnana, immediate knowledge, but in that we are also lumping together Anatma. And therefore the need to make us see, hey, what you think is wrong, now look, this is what you are. So all that is needed, however, is the Aparoksha Jnanam Tvam Dasamastvamasi, that you are the 10th man. And that's all the 10th man needs, and no more than that. No other practice is required. Shastra pramanyato jnaya dharmadehe astita yatha. No, sorry. Siddhadeva hamasmi iti asmad yushmad dharmo nishidhyate. Rajvam ivahir dhir yukta tattvasyadi shasanaihi. We have the knowledge of the self. Nobody can have not the knowledge of self because Atma is self-revealing. I always know I am. Thank God. This is a very important fact to recognize that it is not that Atma has to be revealed, illumined or known, something unknown Atma has to be known. What is always known has to be only known correctly. By recognizing the anatma, not removing, there is no removal here. But Atma is shining as the subject, Anatma is shining as the object. So to recognize that Anatma, this body, mind, sense complex, is object and not subject. By Viveka, by separating the two. Shariratraya Viveka is there. Panchakosha Viveka is there. Avasthatraya Viveka means separating. Since by default there is a lumping together of Anatma with Atma in my mind. Not that Anatma is mixed with Atma, it cannot. But somehow that is happening. And we don't know why. That's why we call it ignorance. It means something that we are not, something is by default. And that is why whoever is born with identification with his body, mind, sense complex. With the conclusion that I am the body, I am the mind, I am the sense organs, etc. So yushmad dharmo nishidhyate. I am so and so, that I know. That so and so is the yushmat dharma. The so and so, the qualification is yushmat means non-self, you. Asmad and yushmat, so these are yushmat, this is deliberately used here, yushmat, asmat, pratyaya gochara yoho. The body is not aham pratyaya gochara, not asmat pratyaya gochara. Body is yushmat pratyaya. Body in fact falls in the category of you. The body, sense organs, mind, all of these fall in the category of you, not I. So making me see that. So that is why by all that is necessary is nisheda. No need to assert Atma because it's already known or experienced. The need to reject or negate the anatma. Why? Because anatma is taken as atma. Therefore, otherwise no need to negate a pot and cloth and table and chair. Idam shariram kaunteya kshetram ityabhidhiyate. Hey kaunteya, this body is kshetram, is anatma, is object. Etadyo vetitam prahu kshetrajnaha. One knows, illumines that is kshetrajna, is atma. Kshetrajnam chavimam vidhi sarvakshetreshu bharata. And hey Bharata, I am the kshetrajna, the self in all. So this is the teaching which enables us to recognize that this conclusion on my part that I am such and such all arises on account of identification with or taking anatma to be atma. That is the reason for this. That the conclusion I have about myself is because of this identification. You have to see that fact. And Learn not to identify. Rajvaiva ahi dhihi. I am sarpaha. That this is a snake. That I am belongs to Rajju. So these two things are also merged together, lumped together. I am the Rajju and ahihi, the sarpa. So all you need to do is to negate sarpa buddhi, not I am buddhi. Rajva ahihi ahirdihi yuktya tattvam ityadi shasanehi. So by the shasanam, by the instruction tattvamasi, which seems to contradict all that I am thinking right now, all my conclusions are that you are Brahman seems to be in contradiction of what all I take myself to be. So yukti is required. So this teaching enables me to apply reasoning. If this teaching is coming from the great teachers like Gaudapadacharya and whatever, so it is right, so Shraddha is there. So Tattvamasi becomes a basis for me to analyze my present conclusions. Is that Shraddha? I don't question Tattvamasi. I question my conclusions, my opinions about myself. That is what Shraddha does. Rest of the people question Tattvamasi, retaining their own present conclusions. Says no, that is called Shraddha. And therefore, Tattvamasyadi shasanehi yushmad dharmo nishidyate. That you are consciousness, self-effulgent, ever-revealing, nitya mukta. And then when I subject my present conclusion to scrutiny that you are nitya mukta sadeva asti. So wait a minute, this is not naham bhogyam pashyami. Indra says this is not right. Because he did not see the whole sentence. Tad brahma, tad amrutam, tad abhayam. This is not amrutam, this is not abhayam. So he took the first part of the teaching and not the rest other parts. Says, no, this conclusion is not right. Comes back. So every Upanishad shows how this Yushmadasa is negated. And the 8th chapter with the Avasthatraya Viveka. The 6th chapter with Atma Anatma Viveka, Asad Asad Viveka. And so Viveka alone is what Vedanta is, Viveka Jnanam. And so you use your yukti. When Upanishad says Aham Brahmasmi, it is so. Then I subject my present conclusions to the scrutiny of this reasoning and recognize that my conclusions are wrong. And that's how Nisheda, negation of what is non-self takes place. And that's how Mahavakya works to enable me to see the true nature of myself. Tushtabhyam spashtayati. Shastra pramanyato jnaya dharmadehe astitayasa. Vishapoho yasa dhyanat nutisyat papmanastatha. Two drishtanta are given. Nitya paroksha atma eva brahma. That Nitya Paroksha Atma, the Atma which is Nitya Paroksha, which is always an immediate reality about myself, that is Brahman. Not what I take myself to be, but that Nitya Paroksha, that I know that I am an immediate reality for myself. But that I is taken to a limited entity, this is Brahman. So Nitya Paroksha Atma eva Brahma. Dagamasya anasanvritte hetu, And all that you need to know that Nitya Paroksha Atma is Brahman, that knowledge, that dispels or removes all the anartha. That knowledge removes all the notions or Brahma or the false notions about myself. And all anartha, all suffering was the result of wrong conclusions. There is no other reason in our life for dukkha or pain, mentally, samana santapa. There is no other reason. Other than false conclusion about myself, there is no other cause of unhappiness in our life. When that false conclusion goes, unhappiness also goes. So, anartha nivritti. That Nitya Paroksha Atma, the self, which is Nitya Paroksha, which is immediate reality, is Brahman. And that knowledge removes all the sorrow which was born of the ignorance or the false notions about myself. So this is established through Drishtanta in verse number 5, Shastra Pramanyato Jnaya Dharma De Astitayatha. How in the Vedas two basic subjects are discussed or expounded. One is Dharma, other is Brahma. So Dharma is the theme of the Karma Kanda, Brahma is the theme of the Jnana Kanda. So how knowledge takes place by a Vakya is because just as knowledge of Dharma also takes place by the statements of the Shruti. Chodana Lakshano Arthaha Dharma. That what the Vedas command or instruct is Dharma. So what is Dharma? What is the right way of thinking and right way of living? Both are necessary. Rutam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami. Rutam vadishyami, my thinking will ride in keeping with the Upanishad, Shruti, or Shastra. Satyam vadishyami, my conduct also should be in keeping with that. So, Dharma, the right way of thinking and right way of living is what we learn from the statements of the Shruti. Satyam vada, dharmam chara, himsam akuryat, etc. And that the Mimamsakas accept that yes, the knowledge of Dharma does take place by the Vakya, the statements of Vedas. Then why should knowledge of Brahman not take place by a statement of Veda? If simply Vakya is enough to make, to generate knowledge of Dharma, which is Paroksha, which is something that you cannot arrive at. Aparoksha, Nitya Paroksha, or something you cannot arrive at. Although Dharma is Paroksha, Atma is Aparoksha, and therefore they are different entities, different kinds of entities, no doubt. But the knowledge only takes place by Vakya. Nitya Paroksha Dharma is known by Vakya of the Vedas, and Nitya Paroksha Atma also is known by the Vakya of the Vedas. So tatha brahmaneva atmatvena asthita jnaya. So that Brahman is the Atma is to be known by the Vakya of the Vedas. What are those Vakyas? How can you say that I am Brahman? I know that I am a limited entity, helpless creature. How to say I am Brahman? Anena jivena atmana anupravishya namarupe vyakarvaneti. That Devata called Sat or Brahman says that I will enter as Jivatma in this upadhi. He says, I will enter these three elements, but that is upadhi. Sthula Sukshma Sharira. So one who has entered here and whose experience right now is that Atma who says, I will enter, meaning that way revealing that one that I experience here as myself is none other than Brahman who has entered here as Atma. Jivena Atma. One that is thought to be Jiva Atma is none other than Devata, that is Sat. Tattvamasi. And then again the teacher says, you are Tat, you are that Sat. The Devata called Sat said that, may I enter this Upadhi as a very Atma. And that's the reason why the teacher says, you are Sat. Otherwise you could, even if you say it, he could not have said. So these are basically statements of Shruti by which we learn that Aparoksha Atma is Brahman. And Anartha Nivrutti, this Vakya and the knowledge taking place in the Vakya alone is enough for Anartha Nivrutti, for the cessation of all the sorrow. Just as thinking that there is a snake there and that I am bitten by the snake and therefore now the poison is now slowly and slowly spreading in my body. Vishapoho yatha, or even if it is a real snake and suppose the poison has spread in my body, then also what you need is Garudi mantra. How that mantra or Vakya eliminates that poison and all consequences of poison. So the Vakya eliminates the poison of all the anartha in our life. And here, what eliminated that poison of snake is only Vakya or the utterance of the Garuda mantra. That's what they say. So Garuda is the Ishtadevata, who is the conqueror of the snakes. So invoke Garuda. You are bitten by a snake and you invoke Garuda by Garuda mantra. And in place of Garuda, snake cannot remain. Therefore, all you needed was just utterance of those chants, which were enough to eliminate or remove the poison from the body. There is anartha. So all we needed was this Vakya, Tattvamasi or Aham Brahmasmi, which eliminated all the poison of anartha and wrong conclusions and sorrow in my life. Thus, the anartha nivrutti does take place by Vakya, which reveals the identity of self and Brahman. Vakyat atmatattva avagamatrena. Atmatattva avagamatrena, by simply knowledge of the Atma as a consequence of the teaching of Mahavakya, sadyeva shruti, the nivrutti, anartha nivrutti takes place. Vakyot aham brahmasmi pratyaya aham karomi iti avi pratyaya anubhava siddha. Slowly is conceding the ground, little by little, and then raising other questions. So yes, we accept that Brahman is Aparoksha Atma is Brahman or Brahman is Aparoksha Atma. That what we need is the teaching of the Vakya that you are Brahman, that alone is enough to create that knowledge. That knowledge alone is enough to remove all the sorrow in our life. Don't accept it. Why do you think that alone is truth about Atma? Aham Brahmasmi, na Vakyotha. Right now my conclusion or my aham karomi, I am karta, I am the doer, the agent of action, that is what I know by default. This pratyaya or this conviction, you can say, anubhava siddha, is something that I am experiencing. Who am I? I am a doer, karta, bhokta. And then as a result of teaching now, this new conviction takes place, I am Brahma. So aham karta, aham bhokta, also aparoksha jnana vaham, I understand. That I know myself as karta, bhokta, that's an immediate knowledge. Aham Brahma also is immediate knowledge. So two immediate knowledges are there. Which one is stronger? Sat Brahmaham Karomedi Pratyayu Atma Sakshikau. Yes, there are two pratyas, two conclusions or convictions. Sat Brahmaham Asmi iti, that I am Brahman, that is Sat, keeps on repeating Sat here. From that Chandogya. And Karomi iti, Aham Karomi, that I am a Karta, agent of action. So, Pratyayu Atma Sakshikau. Both these pratyas are there, both these convictions are there in my mind. So far, Aham Karta. As a result of the teaching, now I say Aham Brahma. So Aham Karta also is an immediate thing. He also was Aparoksha. Aham Brahma also is. So which one is right now? Which one of them is right? Iti Anubhava Siddha. That Aham Karta also was result of my Anubhava. Aham Brahma also is the result of my Anubhava. Ko hetu, I am eva. Now Badha is going on here. That. So Yushmadartho Nishidyate. The anartha is eliminated by eliminating by Badha, the negation of what is false. So negation is going on here. That's the topic. So now, ahankarta, that I am an agent of action, I am the doer, is something that I have been taking myself to be from time beginningless. Ahankarta also is aparoksha jnanam. Aham Brahma also aparoksha jnanam. So negation has to take place. One is to be negated by that. What should be negated by what? Should ahankarta be negated by this knowledge, Aham Brahma? Or should it be other way around? Ahankarta is first. I'm born with that, so that is the knowledge or conviction that takes place first. Aham Brahma comes later. So which should negate what? What is earlier should negate what follows? Or what comes later should negate the earlier one? Both the examples are there in the Shruti, in Mimamsa. The Shruti, so what is a Shruti, or what the Upanishad Veda says negates everything else that comes by reasoning, etc. Or sometimes what the reasoning says also negates what. So what he said first sometimes negates what he said later, or sometimes what comes later negates what he said first. All these examples are there in Karma Kanda. So Ahankarta comes first, Aham Brahma comes later. Should the earlier one negate the later one, or should the later one negate the earlier one? Because in Shruti we find both kinds of examples. So should Aham Brahma negate that Ahankarta? Should Ahankarta negate Aham Brahma? Atma Sakshiko, both of these are the pratyayas or convictions that are illumined by Atma or the consciousness. Now, which one deserves to be negated by what? Tayo ajnana jasyaiva tyago yuktataro matah. Of these two, Ahankarta and Aham Brahma, tyaga. What should be rejected? Ajnana jasyaiva, not what follows and what precedes and what follows. That rule doesn't apply here. The rule that because Ahankarta is first, therefore it should negate Aham Brahma, or Aham Brahma comes later, so no, that's not the way. That rule doesn't apply here. What rule that applies here? Ajnana jasyeva tyagaha yuktataro matah. What is born of ignorance is negated by what is born of knowledge. It is light that dispels darkness. And so also light of knowledge dispels ignorance. Ahankarta, I am a doer, is a product of ignorance. Of taking what is buddhi as myself, and buddhi, the kartrutva is in buddhi or is in upadhi. And therefore, it's only proper that what is born of knowledge should negate what was born of ignorance. Not what precedes, and that rule is not necessary here, doesn't apply here. Because the Mimamsas established certain rules of interpreting the Vedic statements. And this is a rule. Sometimes what precedes negates what follows, and sometimes what follows negates what precedes. That rule is not necessary here. What is born of knowledge negates what is born of ignorance. What is born of ignorance is negated by what is born of knowledge. That's the rule here. That the darkness is dispelled by light. Not that because darkness was first and light came later, therefore, that's not there. Because light is something that is opposed to darkness. And there what is opposed, they cannot coexist. Darkness cannot coexist with light. That's the rule here. Ignorance cannot coexist with knowledge. Therefore, ahankarta is born of jnanajam, born of ignorance. Therefore, tatyaga, the negation or the elimination of that notion is proper by this conviction, aham Brahma, which is born of knowledge. Alright. Atra kah pramanaja pratyaya, watch out. So, ahankarta also is pratyaya. Aham Brahma also is pratyaya. Kah pramanaja pratyaya. Which pratyaya, which conviction, which knowledge is born of pramanam, and what is born of ignorance? How do you decide that ahankarta is born of ignorance and aham Brahma is born of knowledge? Knowledge means pramanam. Pramanam is a valid means of knowledge. Mahavakya is a pramanam here. So, now you used to establish ajnana jasyeva tyaga yuktataro mataha. Only more appropriate that what is born of ignorance is negated by what is born of knowledge. So what is born of ignorance and what is born of knowledge? Atra kaha pramanaja pratyaya. Of these two pratyayas, two convictions, I am karta and I am Brahma. Ka pramanaja. Which one of them is born of pramana? Ka jnana. What is born of, which one of them is born of ignorance? Divikshayam, this is what you want to know. Which darshayati. And so now shows clearly what is born of knowledge, what is born of ignorance. Sadasmiti pramanottadihi. Sadasmiti dihi pramanottha. Sadasmi. Sad Brahma nitya mukta sad asmi. I am Nitya Mukta and I am Sat. Jagat Karanam, the non-dual. This is Pramanottha, this is the Dhi or the knowledge or conviction born of Pramanam, born of the statement of the Veda. Anya Tannibha Udbhava. Ahankarta also is Dhi, but not born of Pramanam. Born of what appears to be pramanam. I experience that I am karta. So there is one. And Shruti says, and then I see now that I am Brahman. But when I thought that I experienced karta, that was only a notion that you are experiencing karta. What you are experiencing is only Brahman, you are interpreting that as karta. Because of the lumping together of anatma with atma. So nisheda, that is why what is important is nisheda. In my present conviction, karta aham, that I am karta, there is that yushmad amsha. That is the part which belongs to yushmad or to non-self. That kartrutvam belongs to non-self, belongs to buddhi, belongs to upadhi. And therefore, that is something to be negated. So, tattvamasi nirdushta pramanottha. So, ahankarta also is vakya, aham Brahma also is vakya. But the second vakya is nirdushta pramanottha. Aham Brahma, that is born of the teaching Tattvamasi, which is Nirdushta Vakya Pramana. So it is Vakya Pramana. The Pramanam, the valid means of knowledge, there is the nature of Vakya. And that Tattvamasi, that Mahavakya is Nirdushta Pramanam. So Vakya is the Pramanam here, the means of knowledge for generating knowledge. And there is Nirdushta, meaning it is Ishvara Proktam. And therefore there is no dosha in there. Well, Ahankarta is born of my buddhi, which is all kinds of doshas. Ahankarta is a conviction born of the buddhi, which is all the ajnana, samshaya, viparya, all doshas are there. Whereas Tattvamasi is a vakya coming from a source which is nirdosha. And therefore, Tannibhodbhava, that I am karta is something which appears to be the real, my experience. When I claim that is my experience, that I am karta bhokta, you think that that is your experience. You are lumping together Atma, Anatma and then concluding that is your experience. So that experience stands as long as it is not scrutinized. Therefore, the pramanam, that aham karta, is an apparent pramanam, as though my experience. It is in fact my conclusion, not experience. Nobody experiences Atma as karta because you can't experience what is not. We experience Atma, we experience karta, we lump them together and conclude that Atma is karta. So therefore that nisheda, negation of Vishmut Angsha is required. Kartaham ityadi dhihi, kartaham ityadi, kartaham, bhoktaham, etc. ityadi dhihi, tad nibodhava pramana avasa samudbhuta. I say it is my experience, it is not your experience, it is as though your experience. It's more your conclusion than experience. Just as pratyakshadi nibhavapi bhadyate digbhrhamadivata. Just as in a forest or a place like that, even in a desert, where, if there is evening, there is no sun, then, or there are clouds, you just don't know which direction is, there is no way of determining the direction there. And you may be merrily walking in the direction which you think is east, and then sun rises, realize that you are walking in the opposite direction. So earlier that this is east was born of your so-called conviction. The nibho uddho is apparently, that's what the apparent pramana was there. When the vakya came, hey, this is, or somebody shows me this, either sun rises or somebody shows this is the east, not that. So that vakya, that this is east. How? That eliminates my earlier conclusion that was east. So vakya that you are Brahma eliminates my conclusion that aham karta. So how vakya can eliminate the Brahma? That there was Dig Brahma. Meaning that taking wrong direction to be right, Brahma. Taking east to be north or whatever was happening there. And then the vakya came, this is north, or this is east. And then the tube light, shines in my mind and I realize that what I thought was wrong. So how the conclusion I had earlier was not born of pramana, was born of my own complexes on ignorance. And this statement, which comes from the source of knowledge, dispels that. So which is to be negated by what? That this is east is born of ignorance, therefore the vakya that this is east, removes that. So aham karta is born of ignorance and that is negated by this vakya, you are Brahman. So this is how the discussion has been taking place of Tattvamasi Prakaranam. We'll continue tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibha Tadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.